Good evening. Welcome to the 2019 version of the Canon City Candidate Forums. Thank you very much to the City of Canon City for providing the venue. Thank you to the Canon City Chamber of Commerce and the Canon City Daily Record for sponsoring tonight. But most importantly, I want to thank all of the participants, whether you're a candidate, somebody in the audience, a concerned citizen, a voter. I want to thank you for being part of the solution, for participating in the process. I think that's important. And you remember, if you're not part of the solution, you might just be part of the problem. So the very first step in every solution is taking advantage of participating in the process. So thank you for that. My name is Rob Brown. I'm with Fremont Economic Development Corporation. I'll be the moderator tonight. And before we get started, I wanted to share with you some of the let's say, rules of engagement or the format for the event, give you some of the background. And then a little housekeeping, restrooms across the hall. They wanted me to mention that, and this is on channel 191. So we're going to have three groups tonight. We're going to have a group with the candidates that are running for mayor. Then we're going to have two groups of candidates that are going to be running for city council. Now, the candidates that are running for mayor, we're going to handle the format slightly different than the candidates running for city council. So, for mayor, we're going to ask a single question, and both candidates will have the opportunity to respond. They'll each have 2 minutes to respond. At the end of the question, then we'll flip the order. So we'll get through that, and then at the end of the set of questions, then we'll have a 2-minute closing comment section. Now, I wanted to remind everyone that this is not a debate, it's a forum. So a forum, and the distinction is that in a forum, you're expressing your views and opinions. In a debate, you're battling it out for supremacy. We don't have the provision for rebuttals and things like that. So keep that in mind. You want to limit your interaction directly with the other candidate and focus on the issue at hand. I think that's important. When we get to the city council candidates, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We polled the citizens of Fremont County, Canon City specifically, and asked for submittals of questions, and we got dozens of questions. So in that particular scenario, we would like to expose as many of those questions to the people as possible. So we're going to ask each city council candidate a different question, and we're going to proceed through those questions. So group number 2, and then group number 3. Number 3, by the way, is the group of candidates that are running for the 2 at-large seats. So that's kind of how we'll organize it. Each candidate will have the opportunity to introduce themselves. All we want to know is your name and the office that you're running for, because remember, at the end, you're going to have 2 minutes to do your closing comments. So that's kind of the general format that we're going to adhere to, and we're just about to get underway. I wanted to make one comment. I've been fortunate enough to participate in this process as both a candidate, moderator, as a spectator, and it's a real privilege to be here tonight and take advantage of this local government. That's a right and a privilege that we enjoy as Americans, and I think nothing is better than local government. But I wanted to say to the participants, the candidates, everybody wants to make sure you're successful. I think that was some great advice that I got at one time, is that nobody wants to see somebody get up in front of others and struggle and not be successful. Everybody wants you to be successful. So relax, enjoy the process, and say what's on your mind, and I think we'll all have a very good evening. So before I kick it off, are there any questions from anyone? Okay, let's get running. All right, so Ms. Smith, you're up. Failed to mention, every candidate will be asked one question that they'll get an opportunity to respond to, and it will be this question, so those of you that are participating later will hear it. So the question is, why are you running for public office? And define the job description of the office that you're running for. So introduce yourself and then address the question.
So I'm Ashley Smith. I am a city council member. Currently, I've been for 4 years, and also the mayor pro tem currently. Why am I running for public office? I've been asked that so many times. Why in the world would you do this to yourself? And I also have a large family, and people ask the exact same thing. Why would you do that to yourself? But I am passionate about my family. I'm passionate about Canyon City. I think like most of all of us, we care about the community we live in and that we raise our children in. We want it to be nourishing for our kids, safe. We want to have good jobs and attainable housing, and those are all things that I would want and to have for Canyon City. I'm also running as the position of mayor because I see that there's 5 seats up for city council. We could have a whole new council. And right now I feel like we're moving in a really great direction, and I want to keep that momentum going. I don't want to lose a step. I want to keep moving forward into the future for Canyon City.
Great, thank you very much. Michael, are we on the timer on this one? Okay, sorry. We had a little timing error there, but I think you were well under. So you're good. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Greer, introduce yourself and talk about the question.
I'm Tony Greer. I was the mayor for 3 terms, 2010 to 2016. Why am I running for mayor? First off, I think the mayor's job is to help establish for the vision and communicate the vision to the public and the council. So in a weak mayor system, the mayor's primary job is communicating and keeping the city council on point when it comes to the vision. It was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life, and I thought I was finished. I think there are some things that we can do better. This community's been very, very good to me, and I want to contribute. That's why I ran the first 3 times, and I was asked back by a few local business people who don't think we're headed entirely in the right direction.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Greer, this question is yours as well. Remember, we're flipping back and forth. So, question is, did you participate in the Small Business Revolution process, the contest that we were in earlier this year? And if you did, what role did you play? But more importantly, what do you think we can learn from that effort and the ultimate results?
Well, I did participate. You know, I communicate with a lot of business people. I was down there on the Sunday morning cleanup and shot some video and contributed. And I think the biggest thing that we learned is that we are all pretty much on the same page. And that was a great opportunity. Even though it wasn't entirely successful, it was a great opportunity for the community to come together and root for ourselves. I think sometimes we're a little self-deprecating. And to see that many people show up early on a Sunday morning to sweep sidewalks and sweep streets and pick up trash and things like that, I think was phenomenal. I don't know that I can remember a time. I've been here about 18 years. I can't remember a time when the community came together for one positive cause. There were times when we were on council that a lot of people came together for a cause when there was a problem, and that's usually when you're in government, you usually see the problem, you don't see the great things. But that was one of the most positive experiences that I've had in the community because there were so many people contributing at a very high level.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
I feel really fortunate that I was able to be a part of the Small Business Revolution. I think maybe my very first, and maybe my, maybe you might want to say proud moments of having that happen was that when I first got into city council, I recommended and the council agreed that we needed to hire an economic development director and someone who could focus on catering to business, bringing in business, and getting grant money and whatever they can to help businesses in Canyon City and development. And it was that economic development director who's the one that applied for the Small Business Revolution in the first place and that did the paperwork, and he was the champion to get us to the top finalists out of 12,000 cities. When it came to the Small Business Revolution itself, I was deeply involved in promoting Canyon City and soliciting votes. I was able to meet with Amanda Brinkman personally and sit at a table with her along with other folks from Canyon City and advocate for Canyon City. I also went out and got prizes to do online giveaways to encourage people to vote and share and make things go viral online. So every day I was giving out prizes to people from all over the state of Colorado who were getting on and voting for Canyon City. I also reached out to Mayors Gradisar and Southers and asked if they could do a video for Canyon City asking their towns to vote for us. And I was really happy that both of them happily agreed to do it, and those videos also went viral online and soliciting votes and positive feedback for Canyon City. As a result of the SBR, we got over $3.1 million of impressions, media impressions. We got recognition from all over the state of Colorado. Everyone was championing for Little Canyon City, and it really put us on the map tremendously. And our revolution it started growing even beyond.
Great, thank you very much. As I mentioned, the questions came from the citizens, and there were a number of questions around this particular issue. So I'm going to ask a general question, and feel free to elaborate as you will. But Ms. Smith, what should be the stormwater priorities in the city? And rest assured, there were a lot of questions around that. So just address it as a general issue would be my recommendation.
Stormwater is a really big problem in Canyon City. As everyone knows, we have flooding in the north, south, east, and west, and everyone's pretty upset about it. And so something that we did on City Council is that we were able to bond $8 million to address stormwater. And with that, we also solicited a stormwater task force where we reached out to the community members to help us decide on where we should spend that $8 million. The one thing we did know for sure is that we wanted to spend a little bit in each section of town. And we had an incredible group of folks who helped us. They were experts in their fields, and they were great in helping us in making those decisions. And so I'm really happy to report that starting at the end of October, we're already going to be starting on doing some stormwater projects to alleviate flooding. Next year, we're going to do North 9th Street. And because we can do the failed stormwater, we can fix this failed stormwater on North 9th Street, we're able to also use the 2A money to fix the asphalt on 2 9th Street and reconstruct that. We're also going to be seeing some work on 15th Street and at East Roads and East Main and Roads. And looking to the future, $8 million is not enough. We have over $160 million of stormwater projects that need to be done in Canyon City. And so we need to be looking to possibly a regional authority or other ways to get funding to start addressing this really huge problem that we are facing.
Thank you. Mr. Greer, what should be the stormwater priorities for the city?
Well, I was not exactly a proponent of the stormwater fees when they came about, and I don't think anybody was, but it is a necessary evil. I think the more money that we can invest in preventative measures, and we certainly were tested last summer when we had a major storm in the area, so we know where the failing points are, and I think we need to go back to those failing points, and a priority should be to make sure that those don't fail again. I'm not crazy about taking on debt to do that, but it's got to be paid some way. So I think we've got to pre-plan, and I'm glad that we have a slush fund that when there is an emergency, we can respond and we can take care of business fairly quickly.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Greer, current city leadership put a great deal of emphasis on improving the relationship with the county. How would you continue to build on that partnership?
Well, that's a tough question because I don't think it's a secret that I've been a very outspoken proponent of the county building being open on Fridays so that the average citizens can get in there 5 days a week. And I understand the need for expanded hours in some of the departments and things like that. And I know that has caused a little bit of rift between the county commissioners and myself. However, I think in the past, as you may recall, back about 2009, we were talking about a regional building authority, and most of the candidates who were running in 2009 and again in 2011 supported that, as well as the building community. And I don't think that we've improved as a city. I think we improved for a little while, and I don't think we've improved as much as we could. And I remember that as we tried to combine and form a regional building authority, there was really, it was turf wars. And now that we don't have a building plan review system here in City Hall. I think the time may be appropriate to reach out to the county government and readdress that regional building authority, and maybe the city of Canyon City can just farm that out to the county, because they have improved their system. I get a lot of good feedback from the building department and the county, and if they can handle it, even if we've got to subsidize that in some sort of way, I think that would go a long way to being in the same business together and sitting on the same side of the table.
Great, thank you. Ms. Smith, your feelings about the relationship with the county?
The relationship with the county is something that I really tried to work hard on when I came on to City Council 4 years ago. When I came onto City Council, there was no relationship with the county. I remember we asked to have a meeting with the county commissioners, and they were reluctant to participate based on some of their past experiences. And we did start meeting about every other month or quarterly, and we did not always agree, but we were committed to keeping the conversations alive and to seeing what we could do together to do what's best for Canyon City and Fremont County. And we were able to actually make some really good headway in developing that relationship and collaboration. Some of those examples would be for the Community Recreation Center, we did a feasibility study, and we both contributed funds towards that. The Stormwater Task Force that we put together, Tim Payne and I both served on that task force, and they also will be contributing $200,000 towards the East Main and Roads project. That's really huge to have that. They're not just their spirit of collaboration, but also financial contributions. Also, we've been working together with the problems of illegal dumping, and we both are issuing trash vouchers to try and help prevent some of that. And so there's more instances where that is. Another one is with the ditch crossing on the Arkansas River. I've been working with Tim Payne with the Environmental Recreation Committee, and it's been really fantastic, and I'm really happy to say that going from a time period when there was no relationship with the county to today, that I have endorsements from both Tim Payne and Debbie Bell in support of my running for mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. The city is at a pivot point right now. We have an interim city manager. So the question, Ms. Smith, is what role do you think the city administrator should play, and how will it interface with the new council and government in 2020 and beyond?
So we are in the process right now of gathering applications for a new city administrator. And our hope is that right after the elections in November, that we will be ready to interview 3 to 5 applicants for this position. It was really important to me and to the current city council that this was an open process, that we made sure that we solicited opportunities to get the very best city administrator for Canyon City that we could find. We deserve to have the best. For me personally, I want to find an administrator who is really keen and has expertise and experience in being business friendly and adopting codes that are easier to get through and streamlining permit processes. So I'm really looking for someone who's really into making business better for Canyon City and really helping. We already have a lot of economic development coming into Canyon City right now from the outside. We want doing business with them easy and good, and to get some more of those opportunities in the future. I think an administrator will be important for that. And it's also important to make it clear that that administrator works for the city council. And so his job is to do our will. And in the new contract, we've also asked that the administrator adopt the agenda together with the mayor. And as I stated earlier, we are conducting those interviews right after the election. And the purpose of that is so that whoever is elected into city council and mayor, that they have an opportunity to help choose that future administrator to make sure that they can work together well and do what's best for Canyon City.
Thank you. Mr. Greer, your thoughts on the city administrator?
I think the city administrator's role is to implement the policy and the vision of the mayor and the council. As I looked at the citizen survey results, 2016, 17, 18, in the category of general governance, we got an overall customer service rating of 58% in 2016 that slipped to 47% in 2018. City of Canyon City quality of services slipped from 51% to 43%. Value of services for taxes paid from 33% to 26%. Overall direction the city is taking, 29% fallen to 24%. Overall confidence in city government was only 26% to start with and it's fallen to 19%. I think that really falls on the shoulders of the administrator. There's a public relations aspect to that role, and at the same time, I believe that the city council needs to be able to say to the administrator, this is our vision, this is what we want to happen. We need to hire an administrator that will make those happen. Sometimes they have to be very creative. We have to be proactive with the staff and say if there are rules that we have in place that are getting in the way, if they're antiquated, what rules do we need to change? And that needs to be two-way communication. I don't think that was happening before. I met with the previous administrator. He said it wasn't a popularity contest, and clearly it didn't work out well for him. I think that in the hiring process, maybe something was missed. In that case, we had a pretty good administrator before, and he's gone on to do great things. And obviously, we have a problem here because we've slipped in every single category that we surveyed.
Thank you. Mr. Greer, like the question about the relationship with the county, Mayor Preston Troutman has gone to great lengths to form and strengthen relationships with other regional mayors and DOC wardens, as an example. What effort, if any, will you put into seeing that these relationships continue to move forward?
Well, I think those relationships are very important. It's easy because there's so many details to worry about. It's very easy to keep our heads down and not remember that we're not alone. We have surrounding communities that influence us greatly. Primarily being the largest town in the county, most of the people that in the county come here for our services. So what we do impacts them. I think they've done a great job of building relationships with those surrounding communities, and I think we need to continue to do that. We've always had a fairly good relationship with the prison systems, and I'm proud that that has continued. And I don't think that I would change any aspect of that. They meet fairly frequently, and I know that they speak very openly when there's a problem. And you know, I haven't been privy to the solutions that they've come up with, but I'm sure they have because they continue to have those meetings, and I think they're very important.
Thank you very much. Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I'm really glad that Mayor Preston took the initiative to start getting the prison wardens to meet together. We call them the big house meetings, and they're actually pretty fun. I've been able to go to a couple of those meetings. I've been over to the territorial prison several times now. And in those meetings, some really good things have been happening from them. Not just for us to understand what's happening within the DOC world, but also for them to be able to connect with us and use our resources together. Some examples of the benefits from those big house meetings would be because we developed that relationship, including with the CCPD, when they had a prison break from the territorial prison, before they probably would have kept it to themselves and figured they would try and do what they needed to take care of it. Instead, one of the first things they did is they called Chief Harvey, and within minutes, we had folks out in the area, and they were apprehended quickly from the CCPD. And Warden Romero specifically says that it was because of those big house meetings that were started that we were able to have that collaboration. We're also working together for if there's a natural emergency, that they have already in place a number of systems and ability and workforce to help us to get through those natural emergencies. Something that they have struggled with is the canines for the drugs. And so we will bring some of our canine dogs, we have 3 of them, and we rotate them through the different facilities to sniff out for drugs, and we have found a lot of drugs in those waiting rooms going into for visiting at the prisons. And so a lot has already come from those meetings, and I absolutely will be be there and still continuing to keep those relationships alive. DOC is important to us, and we need to honor this incredible industry and high industry that we have in Canyon.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, though the Zephyr Gold Mine project will be handled largely through the county, what are your feelings on this project and its potential impact in terms of primary job creation, environment, property values, and tourism?
Sure. My position on the Zephyr Gold Mine is that I am completely against any open mining whatsoever. I did draft a letter from the city to the City Council asking the BLM to be very cognizant of the potential impacts that mining could have on our streets, community, recreation, and property values. But with that said, there's still a lot of exploration to be done. From what I understand, they are in a process of 5 to 10 years of exploration before they even know what they're going to do or have a business plan. And then it will be gone to a feasibility study to see if it's even feasible to do the mining in the first place. And so right now I'm inclined to openly think about the possibilities that it can have, and it's really dependent on how the business plan and permitting process plays out in the coming years. And I will assess that closely, and I will also talk, and I already have been having conversations with the county commissioner, and make sure that our interests for Canyon City and our neighborhoods around there are protected and taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Greer?
Well, I was kind of hoping this question wouldn't come up because my opinion might not be very popular. I actually met with a couple of the leaders of the company, and just primarily one of our core values in America is property rights, and along with that is mining rights. And so I support 100% their right to exploit their ownership. On the other hand, the impact to our community, I think, is more negative than positive. I think they're temporary jobs at best. Some say that the good-paying jobs will be paid to Canadians and the money's going back. That's hard to prove because that's not happening yet. But there are a lot of properties within view of that mine, and they're going to see that activity. And it wouldn't take much of a deterioration of those property values to offset any sort of positive gains and the long-term positive gains for our community. I just don't see them. I see it's easy to see some temporary economic gains for our community, but I don't see the long-term gains, and certainly not enough to offset the property values of the community. If I were mayor, I wouldn't support any sort of cooperation with the mining company as far as using city land. We have some land out there and things like that. And I think, they're pretty nice guys. They're very friendly, very charming, and I understand their point of view entirely. However, their recent lawsuit with their neighbor for locking the gate on their own property, I think, is an indication of what kind of neighbor the mining company is going to be.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Greer, voters are going to vote on a 10-year franchise lease with Black Hills Energy this spring. The city is molded starting its own municipal utility. Why or why not do you think that would be a good idea for the city to have its own utility company?
Well, that's another complicated question. You're doing a good job, or whoever created those questions is doing a good job.
Citizens did it. I didn't do
they're
it.
very smart. Canyon City citizens are smartest in the nation, believe me. I think it's worth investigating. To me, I look at it as a very classic should you rent or should you own question. And in my business, we have that conversation a lot. So I think there are a lot of pluses, a lot of minuses to both. I think that our rates that are the highest in the state, some of the highest in the state. I know that the kilowatt hour rate is pretty competitive, but the add-ons that are there make us in some cases double nearby communities with about the same size, and sometimes even larger. So I think that forming a municipal utility may be a huge challenge, and it may be above our pay grade. But I think we can also, there's another alternative, and I think we can look at joining a cooperative. And I don't know how we could lose if we joined a not-for-profit organization, and sometimes even receive dividends. And I know we get about $500,000 a year from a franchise tax that's on everybody's energy bill. I would rather see our citizens get a rebate check if the cooperative made a profit.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Smith?
We have been working with Black Hills for the Black Hills franchise agreement, and we've also met several times with Canyon's Energy Future as they've been trying to help lead and guide us with their recommendations for better energy. The position I am in right now is that we still are under a lot of fact-finding and investigating on that possibility. One thing we do know is if we do change to municipal energy, that it is not an easy process. It is long and it is very expensive. And for other companies that have come to us, maybe on a more of an official level, we're not quite sure if they really know what they're getting themselves into. And so I am still looking and still investigating, waiting to see what phase 2 feasibility study for Pueblo is going to have, what kind of results they'll bring out. And then we'll go from there. My mind is open, but I want to do what's best for Canyon City and the citizens in the end.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Smith, the development process for St. Scholastica, the project there was slowed down by red tape earlier this year. How could the city improve on this process and not hinder the projects like that?
Right, yeah, so the St. Scholastica process was a complicated one. Our municipal code has a number of things that are just ridiculously difficult to get through. And so one of my commitments is to make sure that we go through the municipal code and find those black marks of onerous frustration and make sure we streamline those and make them easier. When the St. Scholastica was first purchased, it was purchased by Michael Butler, and he wanted to do a PUD process. And so we went through the code and made that easier and streamlined for the PUD. It would save 6 months. Well, then the new owner, Phil Lund, purchased the property, and he decided that a PDD would be easier. So we had to go back to the process that was a little bit difficult to get through. But something that our staff did do is they kind of doubled up some of those processes between not just the PDD, but some of the construction and builds for design, and to make it so that it would go faster. So technically, it actually is faster, even though it has been really frustrating to get through. I have had a number of conversations with the owner, Phil Lund, and he and I are both on board of sitting down together and talking about what he's gone through and looking at recommendations, real recommendations and real solutions on how it can be done better and for the future development. And like I said, St. Scholastic isn't the only one. We want to make sure that this goes better and more smoothly for everyone moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Greer?
Well, by its nature, the development or the redevelopment process is very complicated, and it was much more complicated 10 years ago than it is today even. During my administration, we created an approval vesting process so that once a developer was approved, we wouldn't continue to add things on there. And that was a huge roadblock for a lot of people even considering the city because they'd heard the stories. And we've got very famous instances in our community where things were approved and then the finish line kept moving because of the administration's change in the process. What we used to do, anything of any substantial size, as the mayor, the administrator, the department heads, maybe the city planner, city engineer, would get together and we would schedule some time, a lot of time, and we would sit through and we would look at all of the possible pitfalls and try to resolve as many of those at the same time as we could. The previous process was a routing sheet where you go talk to this person and they add all their stuff on it, and then you go to talk to that person, they add all their stuff on that, and then you get to the end, and then the first one wants another crack at it because they remembered something that they always wanted, And so we tried to establish a process where we could clear all the major hurdles in one meeting, and sometimes that's not possible, but sometimes it was. And in that process, some people decided to leave and not come back. On the other hand, some people decided to stay right here, and Tractor Supply is a great example I met with the developer of Tractor Supply one time, and he wanted to know what the process was. We explained the new process, and he said, that's all I need to know. I'm going to go ahead and close on the property and start building. And I never had another conversation with him at all. Next time I went there, it was a grand opening.
Very nice. Thank you. Mr. Greer, the city has purchased several properties, including what was formerly Constantino's and currently Skyline Steel. Do you think the city should purchase and hold property for some period of time for future development?
I'm a little bit conflicted on that. I think that that's probably not the purpose of government. I think that there was an opportunity and there was cash on hand to make that happen, and we'd certainly rather have control of that property than not. I think the best process would probably be for the city to acquire that property and then seek out a private developer to buy and develop that property in a way that fits the city's vision. I don't think we should certainly be in the development business or the buy and hold real estate business.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Smith?
When we were looking on how we can help downtown, I had the opportunity to call several cities of similar size as Canon City and others who had downtown development authorities, and find out what were the things that they did to help turn their businesses around and turn their downtown around and their culture for business around. How did they do that? And one of the common factors with them is that each and every one of those cities had a key piece of property that was really holding them back. And the city purchased that property, put in whatever it needed to get over those obstacles, whether it was putting in sewer or water or even just rezoning it, and they had to turn it and shape it and make it into something that a developer would want and could see the potential, and that it would be cost effective to do something with it and take something that was once an eyesore and turn it into something that is now an asset. And so the intention we had in buying Constantino's and Skyline Steel was to take that opportunity. For Constantino's, it was to get rid of an eyesore. And I had a number of phone calls from people who said they thought that it looked better as a pile of rubble than it did standing up. And now it looks even better. With a blank slate, it's ready for new development. And we will get an RFP out to turn it around and see if we can and we will get our money back for that. For Skyline Steel, it was a matter of having to do rezoning, putting it in a street, putting in trails, and all those things. You can't do that on private property. It's so much easier and more responsible to do it as we own it. We can shape it, make its future ready, and then sell it to a developer who matches that same vision for Canon City. And so the money is coming back to the taxpayers, and it's going to bring assets to us in the future. It's going to bring us businesses and restaurants on the riverfront.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go off script here a little bit. I want to commend the candidates for doing a great job of answering the questions and doing it in a timely fashion. So those were the prepared questions, but I happen to know this guy. I know him pretty well, and he has this one question that hasn't been asked yet, so I think it'd be a perfect time to insert it. And the question is, Ms. Smith, based on all of the city's objectives, how do you rank economic growth, and what steps would you take to achieve it?
So based on the citizen surveys that we have been doing, we asked the citizens, what are your priorities for Canon City? What is the most important thing to you? And number one on that list every year has been economic development. And so that is a huge priority for me, is to have that economic development. I've already talked about streamlining processes and making it easier to do business with. We also need to have a better culture in City Hall that says, yes, let's get creative and see how we can make this work, and have that warm and welcoming. But beyond that, we also need to use some other tools that are available to us. We need to take advantage of our opportunity zones, and we're also in the process of getting an urban renewal authority. An urban renewal authority is an opportunity for us to use tax incentives to help take away some of the barriers of some of this development in places that otherwise is unaffordable to do. So it's usually historic buildings. Or, so let's say Hotel St. Cloud. What if their bids came out really, really high to be able to turn this into a boutique hotel? An urban renewal authority could use the potential property tax money that would come in from that and close that gap. Because if a really huge company that has all these assets and grants can't pull it off, nobody's going to be able to pull it off. And so we can use those potential tax revenues to help close that gap. That same thing can happen at the river corridor. So basically, it's creating this incredible toolbox of being open to business and helping it be affordable. And the number one thing we can do is create an environment where businesses and developers want to be. They say 9 times out of 10, they come here because they want to be here. And we need to create that environment, an ecosystem where businesses want to come and do business.
Thank you. Mr. Greer?
Well, I think economic growth is crucial to the future of the community. Recently, I've had some people ask me why I always talk about small business, small business, small business. Why is it all small business and not just common working people? And the reality is most common working people don't go out and create jobs for common working people to work at. We need to create primary jobs. In Fremont County, and this is a federal statistic, but in Fremont County, between 60 and 80% of all jobs are created by small businesses. And the majority, when you look at small businesses, those are defined as companies with less than 500 workers, which doesn't seem very small to me. But the majority of those, the largest category, small businesses that employ less than 20 people. I know a little bit about this. I started my company in 2004 here in Canyon City, only having lived here for 3 years. I started as an individual real estate agent. I purchased a franchise and built that franchise from one person to now 135 full-time employees. And so every day I go in there with the idea that I've got to provide opportunity for these 135 people and find more. Those people have gainful employment, and then they spend their money in the communities, not only here, but Salida, Pueblo West, and Pueblo. We have 4 offices now. I look again at our citizen survey, and our overall economic health slipped from 24% to 20%. Now, this is a very small 1,500 household survey. It says it has a margin of error of 5%, so that could very well mean that it stayed the same. But our vibrant downtown category slipped from 23 to 21%. And then we talk about shopping opportunities, employment opportunities, and overall quality of local business services, they're roughly even. So I think we've got to remove the barriers to getting into business and being profitable. We've got to be very proactive because we're in a very small data pool, a very small talent pool.
Thank you very much. Nice job on the questions, candidates. Appreciate the frank and direct answers. The question section concludes now, and we're going to have, each of you will have 2 minutes to share your closing comments, beginning with Mr. Greer.
Okay, well, as I mentioned before, I was the mayor from 2010 to 2016. Those were the years that we came out of the recession. At the beginning of 2016, we had 20 vacancies on Main Street. At last count, I think that was about the end of last month, we had 29 vacancies. So in this really great national economy, somehow our vacancies in the central business district have increased by 45%. That tells me that there's still a problem. We haven't fixed it. As I mentioned earlier, we've got to be very proactive. We can't just change the rules and then let it play out. We've got to always be seeking ways to improve. It's not in dispute that 80% of small businesses fail, 40% of those in the first year, 40% in the following 4 years. And of those survivors, 80% fail in the following 5 years. So you really start out with a very small percentage of vibrant businesses 10 years after they start. There are a lot of national programs. The state's Small Business Development Corporation, of course, has programs where we can not only make it easier for people to get into business, but we can also mentor them, and we can create a culture of success and abundance. And I think our neighbors over in Florence have done a great job of doing that. You know, when you go downtown Main Street, Florence, any time of the week, there are people around there. You go to our Main Street sometimes on the weekend, you could shoot a cannonball through there and not hit a citizen. And I think that's something that we just got to be cognizant about, and we've got to be very proactive about, and not just change the rules, but do what we can to support those small businesses so they can be successful and employ people within our community.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
I would like to say that downtown is not at its vibrant potential now, and it wasn't before either. It's been a struggle for a really, really long time. When I got into city council, there was a lot of anger around the bump outs, although I understand the purpose of the bump outs. But I felt like I couldn't do anything for 2 years without someone saying, how can I trust anything you decide if you put in something like bump outs? And it was a hurdle to overcome. And so we really tried hard to reach out to the citizens and make sure that whatever we did, we were in line with the will of the people. And an example of that would be the upgrades at Centennial Park. It is so beautiful. This summer, there was at one time a count of 162 children at the splash pad at once. We should have built it twice as big. But it isn't just the vibrancy and life of families and children and graduation parties at the pavilion, but it's also sparking new life of development around the surrounding areas. And if you like that type of vibrancy and life that's being created there, that's the same vibrancy and life that I want to see in Canyon City as a whole, not just downtown, but as a whole. We've had our small business revolution. We've been deemed as the recreation revolution with our 20 trails that have been built in the Royal Gorge Park. And now we're being recognized nationally as in the tech sector. And so now we're having a technology revolution. I am proud of each and every one of those things, and I'm glad that during my leadership on City Council that I've been able to play a part of some of that. And we still have projects and priorities to keep moving that forward. And I want to make sure that there's no steps backward, but we keep moving forward to utilize all that potential and all of that energy and drive that has been created in Canyon City, and we take it to its fullest.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Candidates for mayor, you're excused, and we're going to have a 10-minute break. And then candidates Reed, Bates, and Dennehy are going to join us. Take your, we don't have a mic here. Take our seats so we can get started.
I am.
Okay, good evening again.
She asked if you could move your sign a little bit.
We're going to get started. We're running a few minutes early, so that's kind of a miracle, but we're happy to take advantage of that. So we'll get started. We're going to start with Mr. Bates. Introduce yourself and tell us what office you're running for. We'll do the same with Tim and Mandy, and then we'll start the questions.
Hi, my name is Ron Bates, and I'm running for the position of City Council District 4 again. I sat on it for 8 years in the past. If that's all you need.
That's all I need to start. Yep.
Hi, my name is Tim Dennehy. I am running for council member from District 4. A lot of people have asked me, just like they asked Ashley, why would you do this? The main reason is this is the community that I am raising my family in. I feel very strongly about our community, and I love this community. We have had an opportunity to move out of this community, and we did not. We run a small business here, and we see the potential, the people, and I think that it would be a great thing to be a part of it. I think Canyon City has so much potential, and that is why I am running.
Well, thanks, Tim. You're going to get another chance to answer that question in a minute after Mandy Reed introduces herself. So,
I'm Mandy Reed, and I'm running for City Council in District 2.
thank you very much. Mr. Bates, tell us why you're running for public office and define the job description for the office that you're seeking.
That's a hard one to answer, number one. I think I'm running because I had a number of people hit me over the head and ask if I was going to run, and I didn't think I was going to. Okay, I had 8 years of it, and that was an awful lot. Okay, but between 25 and 30 people talked to me, so that was kind of why I'm on it, because I want to represent the people. And that's what I feel very strongly about what a councilman does, is represent the people and the wishes of the people. Sometimes we can get it done, sometimes we can't. But the bottom line is that's what I'm sitting on it for, and that's why I ran. My wife, I came here in 1994. My wife and I, after I retired in 97, started a painting company here in town. That's how I got to know all the subcontractors and the contractors and a lot of the owners and stuff, and I got to also see how, in those days, how the city treated the contractors and subcontractors and owners. I don't know, I'm going to be politically correct on that one. Then from there, I went to the real estate school, and I became a realtor for 9 years, and I got an opportunity to see the city and how they dealt with contractors and some contractors again, and made a lasting impression on me. So that's kind of what I decided that if I don't like it, I had to try to fix it. So I got on council in 2008, and for the first 2 years or so, I kind of butted heads with that council. It was a very ultra-conservative, very stiff council, I guess is a good word for it. And then from there, okay.
Just a reminder to the candidates, you get a green, yellow, red light up here. So, Mr. Dennehy, why are you running for public office? And you started down that track a little while ago.
Right.
Good direction and job description. What do you think the job looks like?
I feel the job description is, one and foremost, is to listen to the people. I was asked by many members in our community to seek, this position. I believe that we can do some things to consolidate some of the regulations to help businesses come here. I see the potential, but I think the main thing is to create some transparency in our government and some consistency with our contractors, with bringing new businesses here, streamline the regulations a little bit. We've all heard different little stories. Whether or not they're true, I don't know. I wasn't involved in any of those, but I do want to see the streamlining, and I feel that city council can help, bring those economic factors and help our community grow.
Thank you very much. Ms. Reed?
So I believe that one of the many jobs of being on city council is that we do, like Tim said, listen to the community and what they want. However, what's important to me is that we're also ambassadors for Canyon City, that we have a unique opportunity to be able to lead our community in the direction that we need to go. And so one of the reasons, there's many of them, that I want to run for city council and be a part of this is I am a graduate from Canyon City High School. And I was part of the generation that wanted to leave. And I am proud to say that I'm part of a big generation that's coming back. And I think that it's very important that we take the time to be able to be active in our community and to be able to create the vision that we want to see for our children. I'm a business owner, so I think that it is very, very important that we look at streamlining codes and ordinances, and that we're making sure that we're communicating effectively. I also want to see the great amount of businesses that are coming in thrive, but I want to make sure also that we're giving great opportunities to the businesses who have stuck it out and who have been here in Canyon City employing people and doing things for a really long time without recognition. And so I definitely want to make sure that we're moving things forward, that we don't lose the momentum that we have that's going on with great things like FEDC and TechStart, things that FAR is doing. There's a lot of great things happening in Canyon City, so I just want to be a part of just continuing to keep the ball rolling.
Thank you very much. Beginning now, we're going to ask each candidate a different question. So we're just going to go through in the same order. By the way, in case the question comes up, the order that we're asking the questions is the order that the candidates are on the ballot, and that was selected by random selection, so that's how we're proceeding. So, Mr. Bates, interfacing with the city can sometimes be intimidating. How would you change the processes and policies to make the entry points for citizens and prospective business users more positive?
I know, well, okay. I don't believe in the word no. I believe in the word give us time, we'll figure it out. I think one-stop shopping was what we started to do when I was on council. When somebody came in and they wanted something, whether it be contractor or a citizen, they had one-stop shopping. It was here.
Right.
It was started. I'd like to see that we had a administrator that I don't think he missed a day that he wasn't downtown having lunch someplace and talking to people, okay? Staff need to get out behind the glass. Okay, they need to get out and talk to people too. Okay, and I don't see that happening, and I didn't see it happen when I was on council. It should be a kinder, gentler city, is what it should be. You don't have to necessarily agree, okay, but it should be with a smile on your face when you say no. Okay, or give me time to figure out how, this sort of thing. We don't do that. This is you walk in, it's very cold. I retired out of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. We had more security in the penitentiary, more security here walking in the door than you do going into the penitentiary. That's intimidating to staff, okay, or to citizens, and they don't come out. And it's all about public relations. It's the whole thing is about who you are, what you are, and where you're going to go. And okay. I don't see any, very few of them go down for lunch, very few of them go talk to people. They're stuck in their offices. If I had my way, everyone would be out of their office at least 30 minutes a day, walking down Main Street and talking to people. But that's me, okay? I don't have that way, but I can push it. And I think that's a lot of it. And it's all about the environment. Simple is the best I can come up with on it. People gotta want to do it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dennehy, many candidates have stated they hope to attract new business and development to Canyon City. Exactly how would you plan to do something like that?
Well, I think for starters, the one thing that Canyon City did do that was fantastic was hire an economic development director. I think that is that's an important in any community. They're specialized in that. I think that we can streamline some of the regulations for businesses, but we also need to make the zoning correct in different areas for businesses to look at it. Right now, if you take a look, right now the river corridor is being rezoned. And it's being rezoned to become more business friendly because if a nice hotel, restaurant, bike shop, rafting company comes in and sets a business, right now it is getting rezoned to where now an industrial person cannot come in next to them. We need to make sure that our zoning is zoned correctly, that we get the right businesses in. I'm not saying that industrial is bad, I'm not. But let's make sure that we have our areas of our town where our industry is. Let's make towns where our services are. And let's make our areas that we do have our service very good-looking areas in that, so people come to town and they're like, can you believe what Canyon City has done? It is something that I see so much potential here. I'm also watching what TechStart's doing. We are bringing people in right now with companies, and the city's really not having to do anything. They are coming to Canyon City. We are becoming a little bit more of a tech industry here. It's a great thing. I don't think a lot of people realize how good this is going. And I also think we can keep going with our school system. Our school system is so important to bring industry to here, because unless we have a strong school system, people aren't going to want to come.
Thank you very much. Ms. Reed, City Council has entered into executive session numerous times this year. What is your view on conducting private meetings versus public meetings when it comes to certain sensitive matters like personnel?
You picked that just for me, didn't you?
Perfect timing, right?
I think that the way we conduct ourselves as council is very, very important in order to be able to allow the citizens to trust us. That being said, I feel like it's a slippery slope when we have a lot of behind closed door conversations. And I don't doubt their productivity at times, because sometimes we can just, let your hair down and say what you think. But I think that authenticity is really important in order to gain trust. And so I believe that we should be having as many public meetings as we can, and that if we are truly being authentic in front of people, maybe those meetings get a little bit messy, but the trust is going to be there. And I think at the end of the day, part of our PR issue with the city is just a lack of trust from the community. And so I do think that's something that we need to eliminate as much as we can.
Thank you. Mr. Bates, the bidding process for the city has been examined this year. Is the present policy working, and what, if anything, would you recommend changing?
On the bidding policy?
On the bidding policies.
Well, having retired out of the federal government, I don't necessarily agree with the lowest bid gets the job. Okay, I think there's a quality in it and that goes involved, and a little bit of honesty and ethics go into the bid. I think overall we've had a good bidding policy here. It's wide open. People can see it. They know what the bid is. They know what's coming. When I was on, we didn't have a problem with it. I was very comfortable with it. So if there's something gone with it, it's been over the last 4 years. But I would stay with what we have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for the easy one.
Mr. Dennehy, what efforts can be taken to better support downtown businesses specifically and see that they begin to thrive?
I think downtown is something that we do need to work on. I think right now with the facade grants and that cleaning up downtown, I'm not sure how we're going to get the traffic to downtown, but our downtown has so much potential. We are having a lot of vacancies down there, a lot of vacancies. And I agree with what was said earlier, that, you know, you compare it to our sister little town right next door. However, they run a lot different thing. They have a specialty. All their stores are filled with the same item. I think we just need to favor the businesses, make it a little easier for them. I don't know what incentives that each business would need. Every business is different, and every tax incentive that you can give a business is going to be different, because the city has to look at the tax revenues coming back. Not everybody can be equal on that, because you just got to look at the numbers there. But that's something that I think, as council, we would have to get out, talk with all the business owners, and, you know, sit down with them. I have sat down with some of the committees downtown, and, you know, we have great businesses there. We have people with such passion for downtown, and it could be a phenomenal downtown. It is a great downtown right now. There is some great businesses there, but I think it's a matter of making it easier for businesses, cleaning up the downtown, use those facade grants. Let's really clean everything up, get those buildings back up to where they need to be. Let's show the beautiful historic value.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Reed, the Centennial Park renovation project is nearly complete. Where should the city next focus its efforts and dollars?
The river corridor?
One-word answers aren't allowed.
All right, that's right.
You have 2 minutes here.
I feel like there's a lot of gray areas in Canyon. I want to be careful that we're truly not just focusing on one spot. I think Main Street has a lot of really good things going on. Sometimes I think the best thing to do for businesses is for government to step out of the way. And so paving the way sometimes means just eliminating some of the red tape. And so we've got great leadership on our Main Street. I'm pretty confident that if you ask them, they'll tell us exactly what we need to do to help with that. We are still establishing leadership in the river corridor and other parts of Canyon City. And so I really do think that the next big step that needs leadership is the river corridor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bates, in the past, this should fit your demographic perfectly. In the past, the city has conducted a yearly survey to select a number of homes to gauge this public input. It's a costly project to do. Is the survey worth the investment? And if not, how could you do a better job of assembling that data?
When I was on council, we didn't do the surveys, okay? I think we talked about it. We thought it would be good to get an idea what people want, okay? But that's not necessarily what they're gonna get, okay?
Right.
Because money, whatever the case may be. I think it's a good idea. Even better than that, just have some town halls that, you know, invite people to and listen to what they're saying. I think that's more than paper. To me, it's a lot better than paper. But it has a value, but and I think this last council, which, by the way, has done, as far as I'm concerned, an all right job, they rely on it pretty well, pretty heavily, okay? And it seems to work for them, okay?
Okay.
So that's about it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Dennehy, what is your view on the city contracting legal services? Would it be better to have an in-house attorney, or do you feel things are working fine relative to contracting those services from an outside agency?
Right now, I think that with our city prosecutor and that being contracted out, I don't see that as a bad thing. I don't know if we need to put our money to have a full-time legal in our community for certain things. I believe that contracting out is not a bad issue. I think that some of the people that do get contracted, maybe, you know, if the city or the city council does not agree with that person or that firm, you definitely look at a different firm to contract with. But as far as hiring and keeping somebody full-time, Do we need that right now? I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Reed, social media has become a force in the last 10 years. Now, this is a citizen writing this question, right? So 10 years, that's forever in that world, but it's been a force, right? How could the city utilize this social media concept better?
Well, I think we saw how powerful social media was in the small business revolution firsthand. I think that we all have heard how powerful it was, but we got to witness it and really see a movement. That being said, we are extremely fortunate to have just recently award-winning schools that are doing great things in technology, and we have an amazing relationship with FEDC's TechStart again, and people who are experts in this field. And so I think that one, starting with the PR level of things, where the community is proud to live in Canyon City. We all share things that we're excited about, right? The pizza that we ate or anything like that. And so I think finding a way to capture the pride of the community like we did during the small business revolution, to be able to continue to share that is important. As far as a means to be able to do that, I think we have a lot of local talent that can help us really take the social media platform to the next level without even necessarily having to hire it out. But maybe it's an internship project with the high school, or maybe it's something that we're giving opportunities for different classes at the high school to be able to assist the city with. I mean, I just think that would be a great, public service that they would be able to do in the schools. I really think that we can learn a lot from our youth and the upcoming kids, and I think that's a great way to be able to bring them onto city government and show them what's going on in our community.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bates, I owe you an apology. I mentioned your demographic as being in the past. What I was referring to is your past service as a council person.
I'm old, I can accept
And it occurred to me that probably isn't how I meant it to come out.
I remember
so.
that. You got
All right.
Okay.
So just to be clear, Mr. Bates, we
Young at
appreciate
heart.
your service, so, in the past. Okay, just for that, we're going to give you a really simple question here.
Here it comes.
What is the greatest challenge that our community faces over the next 5 years?
Oh, that's easy. Working together. Everybody on and working together. Get away from turf, get away from all the negativity we have when it's trying to, and do turf. Get away from the turf. Everybody work together, okay? City, downtown business, or the business community, the citizens, everybody work together. I mean, that's an easy one. And that's what's going to take over the next 5 years, okay? And the other thing is, no more taxes. You know how many times I got hit up on that in the last 30 days? And so that's an easy one. Work together.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dennehy, where do you stand on recreational marijuana, and how would you address the issues and/or the opportunities?
My personal beliefs is I am not a big fan of recreational marijuana. However, it is in our state now. It's not going away. And there's extreme opportunity for municipalities to make some extra money on this. However, that is a very touchy question because I guess because of, again, my views. I disagreed with it when it did pass, but it is here. So do we need recreational? Yes. Should it be open everywhere? No. Should we have recreational cells and that within the county? Yes. Where? Not within anywhere of our schools. Maybe on the outskirts a little bit. Because the revenues, the tax revenues are there. And it is here to stay. But my personal view, again, is what it is. So that's a tough question for me to answer, but I do know that the economic benefits of what a city or municipality can receive from the taxes from it could be exceptional.
Thank you. Ms. Reed, what would you do about employee retention and payroll at City Hall with specific emphasis on the police department? Talking about retaining staff.
So I'll be honest, because you're not supposed to be all things to all people. I know a little bit about that, but I don't have enough information that I've been privy to at this point to speak strongly about it one way or the other. I can share, as a business owner, that books always have to match. You have to make sure that we are able to meet payroll along with need. I do know that there is a uptick in a lot of petty crime in Canyon as well as drug situations, and so our police department is a vital part of our community, but I don't think that I'm in a correct position to be able to say for sure that we should or should not do anything in that area.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Bates, as you know, the property owners are being charged a stormwater fee or tax. How should the money be used, and how should that information be shared with the citizens?
Well, remember, I've never met a tax I like. So my feeling is that we need to look at what we're charging people. And the reason why I say that, I'm going to get off and on the subject, is number one, we have an 8.4% sales tax, or 8.3, whatever, which is just about what Breckenridge is, and we're not a Breckenridge. When on top of that, we just had a mill increase on top of and there's nothing we can do about it, but we have to be cognizant of it. If we can cut some revenue back a little bit, it's gonna help a little. Okay, I hope. But I got the feeling that some older folks, okay, senior citizens in town are having a tough time keeping up with it. Okay, maybe we could look at giving them a break on their water bill or something. I don't know, but I know that was one of three people that talked to me about that. As for the stormwater, I thought we had a plan for that. I thought, like the roads, I thought there was a plan out on how we were going to address it. But the point is like Ashley said, there's $160 million to do this, just like the roads was 60 million or whatever. The money's not there, so we're gonna have to come up with something, okay, to bring and I'm one that does not believe in debt. And when we left the city hall, we didn't owe anybody anything. So that doesn't mean it's not right to borrow or bond, but we're going to have to do something in the future for it. Okay, maybe we can come up with a hotel tax that'll help out or something. I don't know, but I just don't see the citizens can absorb another one.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dennehy, how do you imagine dealing with the budget issue over the next 5 years?
I'm going to have to say on a lot of the budget, again, without being in council, without looking at everything, I can't give a firm answer on that. The budget, I absolutely agree that we don't want more taxes here. We are a higher tax city, and we are a very small town. However, we do need to work with our budget. However, we can work to bring more businesses and the right businesses in that can bring the tax structure that we can get the revenues from new businesses and let the trickle-down economics of bringing 200 jobs into the community do its thing. We don't need to raise the taxes, but we do need to bring more businesses and jobs where we can have the trickle-down effect of the people who are spending here and let the tax dollars do their own thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Reed, this will be the last question in this round. How would you deal with the homeless situation in Canyon City?
I think that's a really important question to a really big problem that we're actually seeing even nationally right now. I know that government moves slow, a lot slower than a lot of the nonprofits and grassroots organizations that we can see, but something absolutely needs to be done about it. I would like to see some of the nonprofits in the city start to work together a little bit more closely hand in hand, because I know that they're going to be able to move the needle quicker than we are, no matter how ambitious of a council that we are. And so I do think making sure that we're giving them every opportunity to be able to do what they're specializing in, right? We've got different ministries in town. We've got all kinds of different people who are very passionate about these people that are struggling with some are homeless by choice, right? Some are homeless by circumstance. We know that that argument can go on forever, but we have people in our community who are very passionate about assisting this. And so I would really like to see more partnerships with the city and those nonprofit organizations and ministries to be able to help these people, but also recognize that at the end of the day, a safer community has to be a priority. Centennial Park, for example, is absolutely beautiful. Ashley mentioned earlier that they have, 162 kids that are playing around. I will tell you that I would not be comfortable with my 8-year-old running around barefoot at all of the places in any of the parks. I mean, there's just things that are going on in certain corners that we need to be paying attention to. And so I definitely think that it's something that needs to be a high priority of council. I don't necessarily know that we are the answer, but I think that we need to be having more conversations in the community to find out who those leaders are and what we can do to better assist them.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your answers, candidates. You've done a very good job. So now you each have 2 minutes to offer your final comments. So, Mr. Bates.
Every council that I've been on or have experienced, including this one, because I know a lot of people that were on this council, every one of them has their own personality to them, okay? And I've been on 3, actually. And they all have their own, and they're all different. They all set the priority according to the personality of the council. The first council I was on, it was a Geritol League. I was the youngest one on it, okay? They looked at life differently than I did, okay? The second one on was progressive, conservative progressive. They did not want to spend any more money than they could afford to spend. In other words, the cash and carry. That downtown was cash and carry, okay? The third one I was on was a little more progressive on top of that, okay? They started doing the plaza, they started doing some upgrades on the parks. Downtown Business Authority, I guess, was getting started then. I think I tried recruiting you to do some of that down there. And, but every council meets their own needs. There isn't a bad person on any council. You may not agree with them, but they're all there because they want to be, and they all have a passion for Canyon City. I think we need to be more sensitive, and I think we need to come up with a little bit of a plan to kind of have a balance between tourism and the business community. Because right now the business community feels like the city's not paying them much attention, okay? And tourism is the emphasis, and they're both equal. If you don't have one, you ain't gonna have the other. So right. I think we need to look at that a little bit, see if we can balance it out some. And all councils so far that I can see are good at one or the other, but not both.
Thank you very much.
Got it in, okay.
Mr. Dennehy?
As I stated earlier, I want this to be the greatest city to raise my son in. And I think Canyon City can be that. I'm watching what, again, TechStart's doing, FEDC, what the STEM award that we just got for the high school. Our school board has done an outstanding job the last 4 years and even a little longer. Unbelievable what Canyon City High School's achieved. The potential with the small business revolution brought this town together like no other. I was so proud. I had friends going to me, "You're proud of your community." You bet I am. You bet I am. I see so much potential on the river corridor. I think that's super important that this council works on that corridor. Every city around us, Buena Vista, Salida, Pueblo, they all have their river corridor. People want to sit by the river. People want to have activities. Centennial Park has been exceptional. What a great thing the city has done for us. We do have to watch our demographics. We have a lot of different people coming here. We have recreation, we have the biking. FAR has done an exceptional job. But we also have an elderly community too that we also have to keep an eye on, keep focus on. and make sure they are a big part of our community. And I think that's where we can all work together. I watch the small business pull people together from every aspect of this town, and I think it can keep going. There's a lot that Canyon City has to do, and I would like to be a big part of that.
Thank you very much. I want to draw attention to the fact that Ms. Reed is running unopposed. So her comments tonight are particularly interesting because she doesn't have a competitor in the race. So thank you for participating, being so forthright. Please share your comments.
Thank you for having me. I think one thing that I really wanted to share with everybody is we saw that small business revolution can bring community together. And I think what this community really needs now is a continuation of strong leadership to be able to keep that momentum moving forward. You can't have a good community without good businesses. You can't have a good community without good schools, without good people, without people that care about each other. And I think that everything both of you said just hit the nail on the head about coming together and about focusing on the positive. And I just think that as even a nation, it's so easy to focus on these negative things. And what I really want to be able to bring to the table is looking at all of the good things that Canyon City has to offer, being a part of all of the good things that we have already going for us. Not to ignore the struggles that we have, because we always will. I want to make sure that the growth that we have is purposeful growth, that we're not just growing for the sake of growing, but that we're growing for a vision that we're all coming together to create. It's not about my vision, it's not about your vision, it's about the vision of the community as a whole. And so I think now more than ever, we have this amazing fork in the road where we can go left or where we can go right. And it's going to be extremely important that the leadership of Canyon City and our county commissioners and all of us together and all of you that are even here taking personal responsibility and saying, this is the town that we want to create. This is what we want to build for our community. This is what we want to do for our kids, and be able to be an active participant in it. So thanks for having me, and you guys had really good comments too. So
Thank you very much. Well, that concludes the second session. So round of applause. And we'll reconvene with the next group at 20 minutes till 8. Thank you. See you here.
Dryling.
You're on TV now.
I've seen her. Yeah, I've seen her talking about
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you. I think we're back on TV, so we got a few extra folks in that shot, but I think that's all good. So thanks again for participating this evening. We'll get underway here in a moment, and as you recall, we'd like for each of you just to introduce yourself and tell us which spot you're running for, and then we'll start the questioning from that point. So, Ms. Stein.
Yes, I am Andrea Stein, and I am currently post-retirement, and I have a part-time job as an author. I write historical fiction. I'm running because we need people on council who listen.
Ms. Stein, just the introduction at first, and then we'll let everybody
Okay.
introduce, and then we'll give you your undivided attention there. So, Ms. Higgins?
All right, my name is Nicola Higgins, and I'm running for one of the 2 available seats for City Council at Large.
Yeah, move your mic a little closer to you if you don't mind. There you go.
There it is.
You
My
good?
name is Nicola Higgins,
Thank you.
and I am running for one of the 2 available seats for City Council at Large.
Thank you. Mr. Meisner?
Jim Meisner. I'm running for at-large.
I'm
Mr.
Brandon Smith, running for at-large.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Stein, now we can start in on the process. Why are you running for public office, and how do you define the job description for the office you are seeking?
Okay, I am running because we need people on council, and here's the job description, who listen, that's the most important thing, do their research, keep an open mind, and then provide leadership to the community so we can all move forward.
Great, thank you very much. Ms. Higgins?
I am running because I hear the word listen a lot. There's a difference between listening and actually doing something. You can listen to somebody all day long, but if you have no intent of actually fulfilling that, then there's no reason to listen. So actually acting upon what is being asked of our constituents and our taxpayers, not only within city limits, because everything also in Fremont County as a whole, because Fremont County does support us. Fremont County, Florence shops here, Howard shops here, etc. So we need to listen to everybody and actually advocate for those people, not just listen. I would say the job description for City Council, number 1 by state law, is budget. You gotta pass a budget. That is number 1. So working on budget, and then, of course, passing ordinances and resolutions, and listening to planning and zoning, and our city administrator, our economic developers, et cetera, to make a decision that is best for the city of Canyon City.
Thank you. Mr. Meisner?
I'm running again just to try to maybe finish some transparency and openness in government that I started with my first term. I think the description of the job is to minimize government, to make it as open as possible for our businesses and our contractors, so that we can all improve. We know that the critical point of this city's success is sales tax. That directly comes back to businesses and tourism, and you've got to make those things successful.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith?
I'm Brandon Smith. I'm running for at-large. For me, I started with Planning Commission in 2018, and I fell in love with this process. And I think that it's important that we continue transparency, growth, compassion, understanding, and listening to further our growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that Mr. Embry is not present tonight. He had a conflict with his work travel, and so he's not able to participate. But he would be one of the 5 candidates that's seeking one of the 2 at-large spots. So I did not mention that earlier. Okay, we're ready to get underway. Ms. Stein, we've got the first question for you. The city of Pueblo is exploring breaking away from Black Hills Energy as their electricity provider. If Pueblo votes to do this, what should Cañon City do regarding the possible renewal of its franchise with Black Hills next year?
I believe that, and I am involved with the Cañon City Energy Futures Group, and we've studied this extensively. I believe there are many options out there for the city to explore, and I agree with Ashley Smith that there's a lot more to be done. I think doing the research and looking, trying to find the truth is the most important thing. And I think the city needs to consider that if Pueblo does pull away, where does that leave us with Black Hills? Because their profits would be much less serving this area. So we need to start, I think it would be a good thing perhaps for council to have 1 or more people to start going to maybe do a couple of meetings in Pueblo and listen to what they're doing. And if they aren't already, if council members aren't already doing that, might be a good idea.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Higgins, electrical energy costs in Fremont County are among the highest in Colorado and the Mountain West. What comments would you offer to local businesses and residential customers, for that matter, that are struggling with the high cost of electricity? And do you believe the high cost of electricity are negatively affecting our economic development in this area?
I do believe that the high rates are negatively affecting our community, but you can't just place the blame on one thing. As far as that, everybody's pocketbooks are being hit from every direction. So it's a culmination of everything. And to have electric rates going up, and there's no regulation on it at all. There's no answer for it at all. It shows up on your bill. And I know how much ours had went up as well. And we're pretty conservative. So if we're conservative, I could only imagine what other people's electricity bills are. We have a very different climate here than anywhere else, including Pueblo. So exploring those options, talking with, and seeing what is actually out there, but talking to people about it as well and listening to their ideas. We can learn from everybody. Just because you're sitting up in a city council position does not mean you're in a position of power at all. We're here to learn. We're here to get ideas and actually pay attention to what is going on around us and see what we can do to lighten that load as well, if it has to be in another area if we cannot control that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Meisner, just a quick reminder, these questions come directly from the citizens, so this one is worded kind of interesting, so listen carefully. When you are on your favorite trail, please identify. What do you consider outdoor recreation's role to be in fostering economic and community development in Cañon City? So they're asking for your favorite trail, and then how you would deal with the economic impact.
Well, I know who probably submitted that, but anyways. I don't have a favorite trail because I personally do not utilize the trails much. I think that the trail system has a significant impact and effect on the community, but my question has always been relative to the trails is that with the amount of revenue that we put towards the trail system, what is the return on it? I know that we have a vast amount of people that utilize those trails, but my question comes back to how much how much are those folks spending in the community, not only on a short-term basis, but on an overnight basis? And that's the real key there, is that if we're going to continue to invest in the trails, there's got to be some kind of return on that, and on that investment in terms of tax revenue.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Smith, what steps would you take to improve Canyon City's reputation among builders, developers, and investors?
I definitely think that that is an identity question. Do we have an identity associated with our vision? And how do we maintain not only the understanding and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to pass.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Stein, the recent city survey indicated that public's trust and confidence in city government was at 27%. There's actually a newer survey than that, but that's the number that is cited by the citizen. What would you do to overcome that issue?
Well, that is definitely a public relations issue. And I agree with something that was said earlier, that I would encourage people who are not only, in official positions with the city, but people who work at town hall. I would encourage them to get out and talk to people and find out. That's one of the things I've been doing, because we've only lived here for 3 years now, and that's what I've been trying to do, is talk to a lot of business owners on both 50 and in our downtown on Main Street. And you'd be amazed at what their concerns are, and what they want. And I've also talked to hundreds of people in the northwest part of this city, homeowners, about their issues with water, and I've learned a lot that way. But I would encourage department managers to just have a coffee, maybe once a month. Department heads, they can take turns, and the water department 1 month, and maybe some other department the next month. But let's start listening to people, because I think sometimes when you have that low rate, it's not because you don't care. It's because that you're not talking to people, listening, and they feel like they're not being heard. I think that's something that I've found in my talking to people.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hagan, based on the same survey, coincidentally, 24% of the let me restate. Based on the survey, only 24% of the citizens approve of the direction the city is taking. How do you intend to improve that public approval rating?
How I would intend to do so, again, is by listening. These people have voices. This is their home. This is where their business is. They have visions themselves as well, and we do need to look at that and take that into consideration when it comes to that. That's a lot of what I also hear. A lot of also what I hear is miscommunication. There's a lot of misinformation that is out there. It spreads on social media, etc. I watch social media. I've had misinformation being spread that I know is intended for that. That's when you get somebody that's actually in those positions to answer those questions. I think us as city council also need to be out there more ourselves, not just staff, but ourselves. Taxpayers put us up here. Our voters put us up here. We need to be out there more. We need to not only listen, but take notes and learn from them.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Meisner, my dear, are you in favor of continuing and expanding the in-town archery deer hunt?
Never heard of it. Well, first of all, I'm an outdoorsy kind of person. I love the deer. I do not like the deer that was stuck on the front of my truck as I went down the highway that caused me extensive damage. There's a balance that we need to maintain in our rural community between the wildlife that's naturally here, plus the damage that they invoke on people's property, not only on the highway, but with bushes and ornaments and trees and what have you. There's got to be a balance there. Keep in mind that those numbers that are set for the deer harvest aren't set by council. Those are set by the Division of Wildlife. So for the most part, it's out of our control. I think that we need to continue the process to see what the success is so that we can reach that balance where we've got whatever a sufficient number of wildlife is that satisfies our needs to be able to see that in our community, but then minimize the risk to crops, to trees, to vehicles, and what have you. So I wouldn't say increasing it, but I think that it's a program that we need to continue to maintain a balance.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Smith, this is a one-liner, very simple one. What is the most positive asset the city of Canyon City has to offer its citizens and state of Colorado?
I definitely think that the most positive asset is our community. We saw with the small business revolution that we can come together, and I think that building on that and us staying together, I almost feel like it was an asset that we didn't win because it allows us to continue that on our own and not just on some TV show or some higher platform. But we have the ability now to look at ourselves, examine ourselves, and continue that in my Canyon City.
Great, thank you very much. Ms. Stein, how do you propose to get more done on the stormwater projects, and do you support a stormwater utility?
I believe
Stormwater is popular tonight, I apologize.
Right. There are a lot of statewide initiatives, and there are resources in this state that we could go to, we could learn from, we could go to other communities who are going through similar situations. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. And this is a low-income community, and I realize taxes are, we have to be very careful what we do in the way of taxes because of that. But I'm thinking if we could, there's probably things we could gain just by joining with other communities who are going through the same thing. That would be the first step before we decide to spend a lot of money. Let's see what other people have done and how they've structured it financially, what kind of grants are available. You know, there's a lot of grants out there for projects like that too, just for the studies. The studies are very expensive because you usually have to commission a study, but there are grants for that portion of it. So, you know, let's just do some research and see what's out there and what other people are doing.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Hagan, Canyon City Council will be hiring a new city administrator in the very near future. What qualities do you want to see in an effective city administrator, and how strong should the role be for city council?
Thank you for asking that question. As far as the city administrator, I will say I used to work for the city. So as a city employee, reporting to department heads and having those department heads reporting to a city administrator, and it fell on deaf ears. And then what was also stated was not actually stated to city council. So we need somebody that has great communication skills. I also do believe that some of the roles and in the job description of a city administrator needs to be refined and pulled back a little bit and let them know that, hey, the group that sits up here, we're collective people. And they need to understand that they answer to us, but not only us, because we answer to the taxpayers. We answer to the constituents. I can't comment about necessarily the last city administrator because a lot of that has been hush-hushed. We do not know why he is gone. We don't know really anything about what happened. All we know are rumors. But I would love to see communication between our city administrator, our department heads, and all the way through the entire staff of the city that comes up here, because that is our liaison to the staff at this point, is the city administrator. So that person has a very, very important role, and they do report directly to us, and I believe that some of the reins needs to be pulled in on that job description.
Thank you very much. Mr. Meisner, there was a version of this question asked earlier relative to the bidding process for the city. And the citizen would like to know if you feel like the process is working correctly and if there were any opportunities for improvement.
I know who put that question in too. I continue to question the process. We need to improve it. And that process, in my opinion, needs to be more open. Whenever we have a bid opening process, that needs to be a much more public process. I think that process needs to be recorded so that we can go back and answer questions about that any particular bidder would have. But overall, I think that bidding process needs to be continued to be reviewed, scrutinized, and improved. And current council has already given direction to the administrator to work on that process, but that's one of the challenges that the new council will have, is to take that bidding process and to make it as fair as possible and as open as possible.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, question about long-term debt. The city's used various vehicles to incur long-term debt, and the citizen would like to know what your feelings are about that particular strategy.
Well, obviously, looking at budget, there's been significant increases in our proposed budget.
You're among friends. That's
I know-
all
I
good.
know.
Yeah. We appreciate your opinion.
Can you rephrase the question?
The question was relative to long-term debt. The city has used a number of different vehicles to incur long-term debt, and the citizen would like to know if you believe that long-term debt is the proper tool to be used.
Well, obviously, any debt is not what we want to keep on the books. We've got to look at a way of balancing all of our budgeting and our debt. Increases extend into a lot of different percentages. I don't like debt.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
That's probably a good answer right there. Thank you very much. Ms. Stein, do you support a community fireworks show on the 4th of July? How we go from debt right to fireworks. Perfect transition. And more active enforcement of illegal firework laws.
Well, as we all know, every summer we live in fear of wildfires. And so we have to balance entertainment with safety. And so the cost of fireworks they're getting higher and higher every year. And there might be a way, if the community wants it, maybe, get some feedback from the community if they want it. There are ways to share this with different businesses that might want to chip in, say the Royal Gorge folks, they might want to help out and do something that's together. But people enjoy it, and what I've been told is that the community is committed to being recreational and attracting tourists for recreation. And that's something that, you know, if they're going to pick out a place to go for the 4th of July, you know, whether or not you have fireworks is important. And I did some part-time work for the city of Dillon in Summit County, and that's huge with them to draw in the tourists. So they always make sure they figure out a way to work it into the budget. But it just depends on what you've got to spend and what you can do, what you can afford, and what the safety issues are. And then again, let's talk to the people who live here and find out how they feel about it. You know, maybe they'd rather not spend the money, and you know, it's their town. So, but again, if you're going to attract tourism, that's pretty important, and that's your big holiday. That's the big draw for your businesses.
Thank you very much. Ms. Higgins, if you could change one thing about the city, what would it be?
If I could change one thing about the city,
So genie rubs the lamp, you get one wish. What is it?
just one, my wish would to stop hearing the phrase of, well, this is what Manitou does. This is what Salida does. This is what Buena Vista does. My wish is for people to say, we're Canyon. We're not like anywhere else. We are not Manitou. We are not Buena Vista. We are ourselves. So if I could rub that little lamp, because once you take away that negativity, when you're putting negative out there, that's what you're going to receive. When you put out positive, that's what you're going to receive. So if we change our outlook of, oh gosh, this is what everybody else is doing, well, yeah, your outlook and your shoulders shrink down. But if we say we're Canyon and we've got this, you're going to have a different outlook. You're going to have more positive feedback. So that's what I would do.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Meisner, are you in favor of developing the Arkansas River Corridor? And if so, what would it look like?
I'm in favor of developing that so long as, one, it's done by a private industry or a private entity and not by the government. I realize we need to set down some guidelines to make those things happen, or to give the opportunity for those things to happen. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I think if you look at surrounding communities in terms of what they have and what is successful, you've probably got a collection of restaurants, shops. You probably have some type of hotel that offers people an opportunity to stay down there, but you're looking at a little business entity in itself that's basically surrounding that environment. So yes, I think there's a huge opportunity there for us to do something, but it needs to be done through the private sector.
Okay, thank you very much. This is the last question for this round. Mr. Smith, if you were elected to City Council, what role would you play in economic development?
Well, I think economic development is definitely important. We all like shiny new things, but I think that it's really important that we focus on our existing business as well. And if we make the existing business economically sound, then we can look at doing more things and being open to new things. But we have so many opportunities here, and I constantly see good things closing because we want this, we want all this, but then when it comes, we don't support it. So like I said, I like shiny new things and I like new development, but I definitely want to see utilization of what we have now.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our question session. Now each of you will get 2 minutes for their final comments. Ms. Stein?
I am running so that we can have a dialogue, and I'm talking to a lot of people about what their wishes are for this community. Canyon City is a beautiful place to live. We love it here. And I'm trying to get more people involved in the discussion. And I've talked to a lot of people through a number of activism projects that I've been a part of. And I'm trying to develop that more. And I think that's something that as a city is not that expensive, and it's something that we could do one-on-one and have focus groups of citizens come and just talk to us about different things to get their feedback. We have to make the ultimate decisions, but there's no reason we can't include more of the people of this city in it. And I think that might help to erase some of the negativity that we see in these surveys, is to get people's input and, you know, make it clear that the council is going to make the final decision, but make them a part of it. And I think in this community, you know, whenever people talk about, you know, old folks, and I'm one of them, it's a retirement, this is becoming a retirement community. You have a lot of folks that have been in industries all over this country that are coming here. They have loads of expertise. Why not tap that to talk to them? They'd love to get involved and maybe help with consulting. You know, there's a lot of them out there, and this is a great place. There's a lot of resources for seniors here, a lot of great medical facilities. And so, you know, that's another industry.
Thank you very much. Ms. Higgins?
Closing statements. I just want people to know that I am here for them. I'm not here for a personal agenda whatsoever. I am here for them. I don't have real estate. I don't have a business anymore in Canyon City. So I'm not out for a personal gain whatsoever for being up on city council. But I do believe what we need to focus on, instead of a 10-year master plan of where things are going, we're gonna leave behind a Main Street that is going to be dead. I believe we need to pull out a lot of restrictions of what is going on. One of the buildings right now, you know, how code is working and how everything is going, this person is having to put in a drinking fountain. There's no reason to have a drinking fountain attached to the wall. Culligan thing, that's fine. But there's too much coming down and being restrictive on our business owners. Our business owners are smart. They run businesses. Let them run their business. Don't tell them what hours to be open and what hours to be closed. Let them grow. And then they'll make more money, they'll be open more. They can afford to pay those employees. It's very hard on a small business to have the employees and pay them with the taxes. In order to live in this town, we all know how much it takes to live in this town as well. So passing taxes and having sales tax keep going up and keep going up, we're missing our demographic. And again, we are not Manitou. We are not Buena Vista. We are not Salida. We have our citizens here that have been here for generations. We need to take care of them as well. I'm not saying going backwards. I'm just saying with what we have now, we need to build up. And then we can focus on the other parts.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Meisner?
Well, anybody that's going to vote for me already knows what they're going to get, so. I'm going to continue, assuming I was elected, to try to minimize the impact of government in everybody's lives and in business. I know it's a cliche, but we need to be here for the people. And if we can't do that, we don't need to be here. And that's a huge change in philosophy or dynamics to get City Hall to move to that concept that we need to be here for the people and for the businesses versus regulate them. And that's a huge challenge, and that doesn't happen overnight. We need to slowly make those changes to codes, to regulations, so that businesses can grow, business can survive, and businesses are interested in coming into this community and build. And if I'm elected, and we can achieve some of that, then I will feel like I've accomplished something. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Well, for those of you that know me, know that I'm rarely at loss for words, tonight being the exception. I don't have the magical answers to all the questions, but with me, you will get somebody that will tirelessly work as hard as I can, somebody that wants to be a team player for both the council and the community, and somebody that has fresh ideas. And I hope I can bring those to the table through the municipal process, and that we can get some things done, some shiny new things, and focus on our business that's already here. But I just really want to be a part of this process. I've learned so much already, and I'm just a sponge for what comes next. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our session here. Let's have a round of applause for the candidates. Want to let everyone know that we're going to have another forum on October the 24th, same time frame, and with a little bit of luck, we'll get done early on that night as well. Thank you to the audience for hanging in there, and we appreciate everybody's participation. Thank you.
Thank you.